Welcome back. I'm going to start this video by briefly explaining the running gear involved with this conversion. So we'll start with the engine itself. This is the 1.6 Ecoboost. It's commonly found in the MK6 Fiesta ST platform, also known as the ST180 or the later variant, the ST200. This engine was used by Ford in a couple of their platforms, in the Ford Focus and the Ford Mondeo, and I believe other manufacturers had their variant of the engine, such as Volvo. Yeah, very efficient engine, to be honest, for 1.6. Obviously, the turbo technology these days is come along a long way from what it was years ago. Admittedly, yes, it's not the best looking of engines. Some might think at first glance it was a diesel. However, it's a good engine nonetheless. Like most engines found in vehicles these days, they all do come with their common issues. The 1.6 Ecoboost is a open deck engine. That means that it does have liners. These liners do crack. The root cause for these, normally cracking, is them running too hot. There's a few little things that we can do to this engine that have been proven by many running them on track and on the road that help improve this and reduce the risk of them cracking. I would say the most common modification made to these engines would be to lower the thermostat. So the most common one used is the Mishimoto. Opens at 82 degrees, I believe. For this build, because it's been a more track focused build, I will be removing it completely. I've done this to my own car. It seems to be a very proven method. The last two track days I found, I don't think the coolant went over 95 degrees, whereas before, when it got hot, it was creeping up to about 110. So yeah, massive difference. The second thing I'll be modifying on this engine for Ollie is removing both coolant bypass solenoids. So there's one on the side of the engine here, and there's one on the front of the thermostat housing there. There's something that I've done to my own engine, and it seems to have worked well as the thermostat removal. It's brought the coolant temperatures down a lot. So it's quite a simple thing. It's something that I'll go into a lot more detail when I come around to doing it later on in the build. As this build is going to run an aftermarket pedal box, there's no need for the vacuum pump, so that will be getting removed. Also on this engine, it runs an evap and purge canister setup. That will also be getting removed because that's no longer required. As you can imagine, with the nature of circuit driving, the corner speeds are going to be greater. So there's going to be a lot more oil movement within your sump, whether that be in side to side or even under heavier braking and acceleration. You've got the oil movement front to rear. There's obviously only one oil pickup in your sump, or it is on these engines anyway. So to try and reduce the risk of oil starvation on the engine while circuit driving is to fit a baffled sump. There's something I fitted in the sump on my own car. I believe Ollie's going to go with the same kind of sump baffle I've run on mine, which is the R Sport. So it's something we're going to do before we fit the engine into the car. As you can see, I've just turned the stand around so you can see the rear of the engine. Of course, there's no turbo or manifold fitted at the moment. That's primarily because Ollie's unsure what route he wants to go down, whether he runs the standard turbo and runs up to stage 2, which is normally around 250 brake. Again, this is all dependent on the engine and the mapping. Of course, there's always the option for more power, that being fitting a hybrid turbo. The most common and popular one on the market at the moment is the Turbo Technics S280. That'll push the power in excess of 300 brake. Of course, there's always the option for additional hardware mods, such as cams and bigger injectors, which again optimizes the power even more. So finally, for now on the engine is the flywheel. So when Ollie originally purchased the engine, it used to run a single mass flywheel conversion. These originally out of factory came with a dual mass. I've suggested to him to put a dual mass back on there. It's only because the single mass is quite hard on the gearbox. So moving on, I'm going to briefly explain the transmission used within this conversion. This is a IB6 gearbox. It's just a Mach 7.5 Fiesta ST gearbox. So Ollie was fortunate to purchase this gearbox along with the engine. He's managed to source one with a nice diff in it already. So this is currently fitted with a gripper plated diff. I run the same in mine. It's a very effective unit, and it served me very well. So my gearbox was set up by Connor and Jordan of H-Sport. They suggested the ramp angles and the preload, and I went with them, and they've been fantastic ever since. So I'm not too sure what this one's fitted with, really. I'm sure there's a way of finding out. But yeah, definitely going to be a good asset to the build. As you can see, the gearbox is already fitted with a slave cylinder. This came with the unit upon purchase. I have suggested to Ollie to fit a brand new clutch kit as well, along with a slave cylinder. The most common one that people use is the genuine Ford ST200. Even with the bigger power, it seems to be a very proven setup, so he's going to go with that. Right, moving on. I'm going to show you some of the associated hardware involved with the conversion. So we'll start off with the drive shafts. So we've got a set of genuine Ford ST180 or ST200 drive shafts. I've had a quick look over them. The hub nut thread's good. The CV boots are good. CV joints feel fine. So yeah, when it comes to fitting them, they're all good to go. Moving on to the start of the fueling system. This is a genuine Ford ST180 or ST200 lift pump. This will actually sit in the ST150 tank. It shares the same hub flange, so it's pretty easy to fit. The only thing that does need looking at is the electrical connector plug. It's slightly different on this one to the ST150. It's still 4 wires to the plug, so it's just a 12-volt supply. There's a ground and there's a canvas high and low for the fuel level. You'll also notice on the ST180 lift pump, compared to the ST150 lift pump, the ST180 has just got a supply, whereas the ST150 setup has got a return as well. So there's a bit less lines when it comes to redoing the fuel lines. Moving on, you've got the remainder of the Parking Race Development Ecoboost engine mount kit. So this fits on the off side of the engine. So I'll just show you quickly or roughly where it goes. So it just sits up there and it marries up. This is paired with the adequate spacer and 12mm high tensile cap head bolt. Obviously when it comes to fitting that, I'll show you in more detail. Ollie has opted for the Vibrotechnics lower gearbox mount. Very proven unit. I've got one on my car myself and it's been fantastic. Moving on, you've got the boost pipes. Ollie's opted for the, I believe they're the ITG big boost pipe kit. So like mine, is a bit of longevity. If he ever does want to go down the hybrid turbo route, all the pipe work there is ready to go. I tried one of these on my Fiesta to start with, the ITG, very popular on the Mark 7 platform, or 7.5 I should say. It didn't work with the Mark 6 on my car because of the way the headlights sit, so that might be something we might have to amend further down the line. And then finally for now, we've got the Airtech Stage 3. It's a double stack intercooler, so it's a big boy intercooler. It's the same one I run on mine, so it's going to be kind of the same look on the front really, where the front of the car looks like an intercooler, but very aggressive look. It marries up nicely with the front mount splitter. So yeah, when it comes to fitting these parts, obviously I'll go into more detail, but for now, further down the line, obviously it'd be more associated parts, whether it be fuel lines, the pedal box, etc. But when it comes to that, I'll explain in a bit more detail. So just another update. I spent yesterday afternoon stripping out the remainder of the interior. So that was all the dashboard, the steering column, and all the associated components such as the heater matrix. Of course, there's still quite a bit to remove at the moment. We've still got the remainder of the sound deadening and the insulation and the remainder of the electronic components. With this build, we are going to keep quite a bit of the OEM electronics, such as the fuse board and the relays. Of course, I'll explain further down the line why we're going down that route and why we're keeping most of the OEM interior electronics. It'll make perfect sense then. But going forward with the interior of the chassis, there's quite a bit more weight removal that we can add to it by cutting out some of the non-structural rear quarter, removing the majority of the sound deadening. It's quite a strenuous job, but it's something that is very beneficial. There's quite a bit that we can remove in the front doors. In the aid of removing more weight from the car, I'm going to be removing these bars out of that door and both the near side. Because Ollie is going to be running a full cage with cross door bars, you have still got protection from any potential side impact. As you can see, the majority of the ST150 body loom is quite big and bulky, so I'll be able to cut out as much weight as I can going forward. So I'm just going to show you some progress I made on the outside of the car now. So I've removed the majority of the underlying components, such as the subframe and the steering rack. And then you've got the both near side and off side hub assemblies, brake calipers, lower wishbones, drop links and shocks. Just showing you a bit more that I've removed. So I've removed the master cylinder. This will be no longer required with the build. As I previously mentioned, Ollie will be running a pedal box. I'm in the process of removing the ABS pump. That's another thing that's no longer required because of the pedal box. And the OEM fuel lines and all the brake lines will be removed because Ollie will be running the braided lines on the inside. So I'm just going to show you in a little more detail the components I've removed from the front underside of the car. I'll start with the subframe. As you can see, there's some light surface corrosion. There's nothing to worry about. Once it's been shot blasted and powder coated, it'll look brand new. As you can imagine, a car of this age, especially being a Ford, as some might point out, they do rust. So moving on to the front offside and near side hub assembly. So you've got the lower wishbone, the old shocks and the old brake assembly and the front hubs. So the plan with this is to completely replace the suspension setup on this. Ollie's going to use his Moisturize off his old car. So that's a simple job. With the brakes, he's undecided yet. The most common big brake upgrade on the MK6 ST150 is the Focus ST170 brake setup. So just to elaborate on the Focus ST170 front brake upgrade for the ST150, it's a simple job really. At the moment, the ST150 hubs have a M8 clearance hole. All you need to do is drill them out to an M10 clearance hole and the calipers and carriers bolt straight on. The disc steps up to a 300mm. The benefit, I suppose, is with the ST170 brake upgrade, it shares the same pads as the Fiesta ST150 caliper, so it does keep costs down. As the Focus ST170 shares the same PCD as the Fiesta ST150, the disc fits straight on. Of course, there's many other brake upgrades that you can go down. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Ollie's undecided yet whether he does go down the Focus route, but there's many other upgrades you can do. Obviously, the limiting factor is your wheel size. Ollie is hoping to run a 15-inch wheel, so there's not a lot of kits that do fit under a 15-inch wheel. There's some spenny ones, there's Alcons, but you're talking about £2.5 to £3 for a set of brakes. Whether he wants to go that far with the build, it's entirely up to him. With the other components, such as the lower wishbones, you have the option for polybushing. This is a route that Ollie will be going down, whether he goes down the Powerflex route with the, I believe it's the yellow and purple, which is more the road biased, or you've got the full black series, which is the full track spec. I believe you'll probably be going with the full black series, being it's more predominantly a track car build. And finally, onto the steering rack. So this is the ST150 steering rack. This can be salvaged and used again. There's nothing wrong with the rack. The only thing that I will suggest to Ollie to change, I run it on my car myself and quite a few people I know run them, is Mark Kinsey of Kinsey Fabrications. He makes a solid bush to replace the rubber bushes that sit in there. It's definitely a fit and forget, and I definitely noticed a difference when they were fitted. As for the high pressure lines and the return lines, these are no longer required because Ollie will be going down the same route as myself with the AN lines. Kinsey Fabrications also produces a couple of AN adapter fittings that sit nicely in the rack. I've had them in mine now for probably over 5 years and I've never had an issue with them. So yeah, definitely a good asset.